Amazing twist. Billionaire CEO discovers janitor's hidden struggles, the touching truth exposed. Ethan Caldwell, the titan of tech in Manhattan, tore through the office with his usual haste. Meetings blurred into meetings. Phone calls shrieked like sirens demanding his attention. Headlines heralded his success. Profits climbed to dizzying heights. Yet amidst this whirlwind, he felt detached like a pilot flying a ship through the clouds, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing below. But something caught his eye on this particular day, something that yanked him from his corporate cocoon. A letter, half obscured among Miguel's cleaning supplies, caught the dying light of the afternoon. Intrigued, Ethan stopped, silently scooping it up, letting the surge of curiosity shatter the facade he had carefully crafted around himself. As he read, the words felt raw and unfiltered. A plea to a local educational foundation from the janitor who cleaned his restrooms and emptied the waste bins in the sleek corporate corridors. Miguel's aspirations unfolded before him. Paragraphs detailing his dreams of enrolling in a computer science program, dreams thwarted by the harsh reality of his mother's illness and his role as the sole provider for his two younger siblings. The weight of Ethan's accomplishments felt suddenly burdensome, like an iron chain pulled tight around his heart. Guilt intensely unfamiliar pressed down on him, closing the air around his lungs. Here was a man scraping by, quietly resilient, while his dreams dimmed under the shadows of the skyscraper Ethan called home. Faces of his executive team flashed before him laughing, celebrating potential cutbacks that would sacrifice men like Miguel for fleeting corporate gains. The irony twisted inside Ethan's gut. He thrived in a world propelled by profit, yet condemned those like Miguel to the brink of despair. He shuddered at the thought. Their laughter echoed hollowly against the now familiar words of Miguel's letter, revealing a stark contrast too jarring to ignore. It was a dilemma that gnawed at Ethan's insides, shifting uneasily with every breath. Every moment he shared with his executives brought a surge of tension, their banter a steady reminder of the chasm now yawning wide between their lives, and Miguel's heartfelt yearning for education opportunity reduced to dreams deferred. The sound of clattering egos and dreams dashed echoed around him even as he tried to remain impassive. His mind raced through a cacophony of thoughts. Should he toe the company line? Keep the empire thriving at the expense of others? Or could he stand up, champion the janitor's dreams, and tarnish his own legacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ethan stood before the glass of his office, the skyline glittering mockingly. The truth of shared struggle loomed heavily in the air, a relentless tick-tock echoing in his mind. Every second felt crucial, every decision weighed against the morality he had long shunned. He clenched his fists, recalling the warm smile on Miguel's face, unaware of the storm brewing above him. An appalling thought clenched tighter. Each day could be his last, and Ethan could either be the architect of that decision or the improbable savior of an unlikely dream. And as the meeting approached, the choice crystallized before him, the weight of ambition pressing down harder. What cost was he willing to pay, and would it transform everything he had built? The answer hung precariously in the balance, pulsing with life. Ethan's heart raced as the meeting drew nearer, each step echoing with uncertainty. The glass doors to the conference room felt like an insurmountable barrier, separating him from the executives he had aligned with for years. They were voices of comfort in their shared ambition, yet suddenly, they felt like enemies distanced from the reality he had just encountered. As he entered the room, filled with muted tones and polished surfaces, the chatter slowed, eyes trained on him. The usual camaraderie amongst the group felt tainted. Laughter seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the gravity of Ethan's thoughts. He could hear their discussions plans for yet another quarterly cutback, dismissive jokes at the expense of those who served them. Each remark sliced deeper, like sharpened blades forcing him to confront the contradiction lurking within his empire. Well, Ethan, you look like you've seen a ghost. Long night? Joked Jack, the CFO, a man he had once respected. The humor fell flat against the weight inside him. He managed a tight smile, eyes flitting to the sideline janitor cart lingering by the door, a stark reminder of Miguel's struggles. Would these executives even understand? Or would they dismiss him as sentimental? Before we get into the financials, there's something we need to discuss, Ethan said, fighting against the swell of apprehension in his throat. The murmurs across the table quieted, allowing the tension to thicken, palpable and stark in its purity. What's on your mind? Lucy, the head of marketing, asked, her brow furrowing slightly. They didn't know. They couldn't possibly comprehend the toll of that letter, the echo of a life so different from theirs. I want us to consider a new initiative, he began, feeling the weight of eyes upon him, sensing disbelief growing among them. A scholarship program aimed at providing educational opportunities for our employees, specifically targeting those who show promise but face significant challenges, like our janitorial staff. The room erupted into a chorus of questions, skepticism lacing their voices. That sounds great in theory, Ethan, but how? Jack started. No, hear me out. The interruption spilled from his lips with more force than intended, fueled by a surge of clarity. We have a responsibility to the people who support us. Miguel, for instance, has the ambition to excel in computer science, yet he can't pursue it due to his circumstances. We profit from his work. Should we not invest in the lives entwined with our success? The silence that followed felt electric. Ethan could see the gears turning in their heads, considering the implications, the potential backlash. He had always been the one proposing expansion, aggressive market strategies. Yet now he championed the vulnerable. Would they recoil? I can't believe you're seriously suggesting we throw money at what? A feel-good project? Lucy challenged, crossing her arms. Ethan felt a flicker of determination igniting within him. It's more than that, it's about creating a legacy that reflects what we stand for. If we don't use our resources to uplift others, what good is this company? As he spoke, Ethan noticed how passionately his words resonated beyond mere financials. With each sentence, he was unearthing not just Miguel's plight, but his own. This wasn't about making his company look good. This was about building what he genuinely wanted to stand for. But the tension built as he faced their incredulity, doubt shadowing their expressions. What about our bottom line? Jack chastised, the words a cold reminder of why they were all their money first. Ethan inhaled deeply. He could argue, fight for this idea, but he also understood the risk. Would he jeopardize his standing in the company for a vision that few might support? The moment hung on the verge of collapse or creation, the path unfolding in both directions. Then a thought pierced through the ambiguity. What if he stepped beyond the corporate veil, challenged the very framework that built him, and asked them to reconsider their values? Would he step forward and reclaim his agency against the tide of conformity? What if I used my voice, he proposed slowly, to bring this plan directly to our board? The idea hung there, heavy with anticipation. In that moment, Ethan realized he stood at the precipice of transformation, not just for Miguel, but for himself. Whatever awaited him, he sensed change in the air, both terrifying and thrilling. The time had come to face the inevitable choice ahead, a battle not just for Miguel's future, but for Ethan's very soul. He felt the tension tightening around him, shaping the next steps in ways he couldn't yet predict. The dark underside of status and wealth stretched far and wide, and yet, for the first time, he felt ready to leap into the unknown. What path would lead him to the truth he had buried so deep within himself? And would it mean relinquishing the empire he had built? Ethan awoke the next morning with the remnants of the previous day's confrontation still echoing in his mind. The seed of doubt he had planted began to sprout roots, intertwining with his thoughts about ambition, purpose, and ethics. As he dressed in the sterile light of his bedroom, each pull of fabric around him felt more constrictive, a tangible reminder of the mold he had crafted for himself in the corporate world. A tea breakfast, the usual banter with his wife, Claire, felt elusive. She noticed the pallor of concern etched upon his face. You've been distracted lately, Ethan. What is troubling you? Her eyes searched for answers that he hesitated to articulate, fearing they would shatter the image he had meticulously curated. It's work, he finally admitted, unable to hold the weight of his turmoil any longer. It's more than work. There's something I want to do, something that feels important, but it could cost me everything." The words tasted foreign on his tongue, laden with vulnerability. Claire set her coffee cup down, the clink of porcelain underscoring the gravity of their conversation. "You've built a successful career. Are you prepared to risk it for an ideal?" Ethan knew he needed to articulate his vision, yet fear tugged at his resolve. "What if doing the right thing is what I was meant to do?" He countered, words tumbling forth with increasing urgency. After a fraught morning, he arrived at the office feeling like an outsider. The clamor of ringing phones and the hum of office chatter felt detached as he navigated the hallways. Pausing in front of the conference room, he gathered his thoughts, determined to solidify his proposal for the board meeting. The very walls that once provided him comfort now loomed like a labyrinth. As the meeting unfolded, he observed the faces of his executives carefully. Skepticism danced in their expressions. They were resistant, haunted by the shadows of their fears: fear of change, fear of loss, fear of tarnished reputations. Ethan's words, meant to inspire, felt like a gust against a storm. That urgency to challenge the status quo tasted sweet yet bitter, as every counterpoint they raised threatened to extinguish his budding resolve. "No one's arguing that education is important," Jack reiterated, arms crossed firmly against his chest. "But it doesn't translate to increased profits, Ethan. It's not what we do." His tone dripped with dismissiveness. Ethan's gut churned with frustration. Did these leaders not see that their empire was built on the backs of everyday people, their employees? "That's it, isn't it?" he found himself saying, stealing his posture. "It's easier to prioritize profit over people, but we risk everything that this company stands for, including our integrity." His own words shocked him, a surprising admission that forced him to confront his values head-on. In that moment, he realized he couldn't approach this battle like previous negotiations. This wasn't about quarterly reports or financial forecasts. This was a fight for human dignity, a fight that had to originate from within him. What if we positioned ourselves as leaders in corporate responsibility? Investors look for ethical companies. Our commitment could elevate us above competitors, he continued, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The silence thickened, punctuated only by the flicker of fluorescent lights overhead. He could feel the tension coiling around him, yet a flicker of an idea seemed to illuminate the dark corners of his mind. Could he rally their energy to stand unified, to push them to see the value in lifting others? As the board members exchanged glances, debating their next steps, Ethan experienced a rush of vulnerability. Each second felt like an eternity as he realized no matter their decision, he had already ventured into uncharted waters. This wasn't merely about a scholarship program anymore. It was about redefining the essence of success, merging personal courage with professional ambition. Suddenly, Lucy, seemingly hesitant, broke the silence. "What if we took a small step? Pilot your program for 6 months. We can track metrics, see if it helps boost morale and productivity." Ethan's heart raced, not from joy, but from the fear of the potential backlash. Gratitude bubbled inside him, yet he recognized the precariousness of this arrangement. "It's a start, but it can't be just a token gesture," he warned. "It must be genuine, or we risk losing everything we could stand for." The meeting adjourned with a tumult of unresolved feelings, but one thing was clear. They were teetering on the edge of transformation. Ethan stepped into the hallway, breathless, aware that this was just the beginning of a far greater struggle. The challenge resided not merely in convincing others. It lay in sustaining his commitment to authenticity in a world built on pretense. With every calculated risk, he edged closer to redefining not just the company's future, but his own. As he left the office that day, a singular thought anchored him. He might have ignited the spark for change, but would he have the strength to fuel the fire? Ethan spent the evening battling restlessness, the weight of the day's decisions clinging to him like shadows. Claire noticed his disquiet as they sat at the dinner table. "You're going to drive yourself crazy if you keep worrying like this," she pointed out, her voice a mix of concern and exasperation. "I can't help it," he replied, feeling the familiar heat of frustration prickling his skin. "What if they don't take me seriously? What if they just go through the motions with my program and nothing changes?" Anxiety coursed through him, an unwanted companion in both his work and personal life. "You're right to be afraid," Claire said, locking her gaze with his. Change is daunting. But you believe in this, so use that belief to fuel your fight. Grasp it and don't let go. Her words lingered, urging him to grasp the essence of what he intended to achieve. He needed passion, not just for the justification of his vision, but as a means to uplift those around him. Work could transform lives if he harnessed the company's resources beyond profit margins. The following day, he stepped into the office with newfound determination. He resolved to gather stories from employees' real narratives of struggle, ambition, and aspiration that would resonate with the board. If he could humanize his vision, perhaps he could mitigate their concerns and sway their skepticism. He could show them that profit stands on a foundation of purpose. Ethan spent the first half of the day conducting informal interviews. He spoke with Anna from HR, a single mother striving to balance her responsibilities and ambitions, and Jamal, the frail yet spirited janitor who shared tales of nights spent studying in his cramped apartment. The more he listened, the more inspired he became. These conversations were fuel for his rising blaze. Yet, as he gathered these stories, a sense of unease also settled deep in his belly. Once shared, would these revealing narratives be treated merely as tools for his promotion rather than genuine efforts to uplift others? It troubled him. What was the line between ambition and exploitation? During a quiet lunch break, loss weighed heavily on his mind. He scrolled through the stories he had collected, the rawness echoing loudly within him. He could either integrate them into a marketing pitch or create a real program that would empower these individuals, fostering change on a deeper level. He feigned engrossment in his phone, but the truth gnawed at him. Ethan felt compelled to approach Jack. The board's lead skeptic, he had been an obstacle in multiple attempts to shift the company's culture towards empathy and ethical responsibility. Ethan had admired Jack's sharp acumen, yet now he recognized that admiration would serve him little. He needed to confront Jack, not as an adversary, but as an ally. The forthcoming pilot program hinged on cooperation. Jack, Ethan called, mustering all the courage he could. Can we talk? Jack's eyebrow arched, clearly bemused by the sudden urgency in Ethan's tone. Sure. What's on your mind? The words tumbled out, raw and candid. What if we made this more than just a pilot? What if we committed to genuinely helping our employees? I have stories that could challenge our practices. Jack's expression hardened, skepticism flashing across his features. And what happens when it fails? You'll be the one left holding the bag, Ethan. This isn't about altruism, it's business. We can't afford to chase idealism. Ethan inhaled sharply. The compliment of his vulnerability turned into gilded caution. But what if doing the right thing is the best business decision? We can't measure everything in profit. What about loyalty, morale? Will we be remembered as a company that only cared about the bottom line? For a moment, silence enveloped them, the tension palpable as Ethan waited for Jack's response. The true weight of their roles spiraled through his mind. One was a guardian of caution, the other, a beacon of courage. Ethan, you may be onto something, but the stakes are high. Jack finally conceded, the conflict in his voice a harbinger of uncharted territory, and with that, Ethan felt the spark ignite within him once more. It was time to push through, to explore the depths of the uncharted waters he found himself in. He clutched his files tightly as he prepared to forge this path, knowing both opportunity and peril lurked ahead. Ethan had ignited conversations, but how he navigated this fragile alliance would define whether his real commitment would blossom or be extinguished. Would he stand firm in his conviction, or would he fall prey to doubt once more? The time had come to face true opposition, both within the company and within himself. Ethan awoke the next morning burdened by a sleepless night. These fragile alliances were proving to be a mental maze. Determination coursed through him, but it was marred by the weight of countless questions. As he stood in front of the bathroom mirror, he glimpsed the familiar lines of doubt etched on his face. Instead of turning away, he leaned closer, scanning the vulnerability hidden beneath his determined facade. He had a decision to make. The stories he gathered were more than tools. They were voices yearning to be heard. But how would he wield this newfound power without compromising integrity? Could he persuade Jack to see the potential for growth that lay within these narratives? At the office, Ethan walked towards Jack's office, his heart racing with each step. The dull, gray walls felt stifling, a reminder of the old ways that stifled creativity and connection. As he approached, he paused for a moment, wondering if this would solidify his commitment or expose his uncertainty. "Jack," he said, knocking lightly on the door, "do you have a moment?" "Always for you, Ethan," Jack replied, his tone neutral yet curious. Ethan's thoughts rushed, desperate to translate his resolve into concrete terms. "I've been thinking about how we communicate these stories. What if we showcase them as part of a campaign to not only boost morale, but to create a new culture grounded in empathy?" Jack leaned back, considering. "You mean to put emotional narratives at the forefront? But isn't that risky? What if the board sees it as a liability?" "No," Ethan pressed. "It could be our greatest strength. People need to see that the company values them as individuals. If we reflect their struggles, it could reshape perceptions not just internally, but externally too. We could redefine our brand." "Ethan, protecting the brand's integrity is priority number one," Jack responded, the hardness creeping back into his voice. Ethan took a breath. "But isn't a brand built on authenticity? If we can connect with our employees, imagine what that would do for customer loyalty. We hold the power to transform lives. It starts with us being real." Jack's demeanor shifted slightly as he wrestled internally. "I need to know you're committed. This isn't a safe bet. Risks come with consequences. Can you handle that?" Ethan's pulse quickened. Could he handle it? Suddenly, the stakes felt heavier than mere career advancement. They involved the hopes of the people whose stories he had captured, individuals yearning for validation and recognition. "I want to back down. I want to make this work, not just for the company, but for the employees who invest their lives into it." A flash of respect crossed Jack's face. There was something different about Ethan's tone today. "All right, I'll consider it," he said reluctantly, his voice steeped in caution. Ethan stepped out, a wave of exhilaration surging through him. Yet as quickly as it came, an unsettling realization crept in. Jack's agreement was tenuous. He needed a solid plan that would resonate with not only Jack, but the entire board. After hours spent refining his pitch, Ethan reached for his phone and connected with Claire. As she listened to his ideas, her enthusiasm was palpable. "You're growing, Ethan. But what's next? It's time to put this plan into action." Their conversation kindled a fire within him. There were still hurdles ahead, both in shaping the message and finding the right time to present it. Tension tangled in his stomach as he mulled over potential backlash or skepticism. With his heart racing, Ethan set a date for the board meeting, presenting the stories he'd collected and connecting the dots between personal struggles and corporate strength. He envisioned their faces, skepticism giving way to intrigue. Yet, as he prepared to share this vulnerable narrative of collective humanity, self-doubt flared within him. What if his coworkers felt exposed? What if they resented him for airing their struggles? The night before the presentation, Ethan wrestled with his conscience. He had become vulnerable in a way that terrified him, standing at the precipice of a significant change. It was no longer just about his promotion. It was about alignment with his values. He was on the brink of either stepping boldly forward or retreating to the safety of silence. The morning of the meeting dawned, bringing with it an ominous sense of expectation. He would have to confront not only the board, but also his fear of failure. In that moment, standing at the door of the conference room, a shred of resolve ignited. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. This was it. He would either risk it all for the sake of authenticity or walk away from what could be a pivotal moment in his career. With a final deep breath, Ethan stepped inside, the weight of change looming over him. Would he emerge victorious or shatter under the pressure? As he began to speak, the room fell silent, and he realized the true challenge had only just begun. Ethan adjusted his tie, feeling the fabric constrict around his neck as he faced the conference room filled with the board members. He glanced around, the once abstract concept of vulnerability now palpable in the air. Cameras recorded every moment, a reminder that failure would be broadcasted, making retreat impossible. "Thank you all for being here today," he started, his voice steadier than he felt inside. "What I'm about to share transcends numbers and projections. It's about the real lives behind this company." As he spoke, he could see Jack's eyes narrowing, a mix of skepticism and intrigue playing out on his features. The stories he had collected seemed to hang in the air like a finely spun web, connecting the present to the human experiences that inspired its creation. He painted vivid scenes of his colleagues Dan, whose dedication stemmed from overcoming the loss of his family, and Mia, who juggled work and her studies against the tide of self-doubt. Each narrative breathed life into the proposal, transforming statistics into relatable human experiences. As Ethan's voice grew stronger, he felt the shift in the room. Faces once clouded in skepticism began to soften, yet a persistent knot twisted in his stomach. The stakes felt high. One misstep could unravel everything. What if his colleagues felt exposed? The silence was thick with tension. The board was listening, but were they truly hearing? He pressed on, pouring his heart into the pitch, emphasizing that these stories were not liabilities, they were the essence of who they were as a company. By embracing genuine narratives, he proposed they could cultivate a culture of transparency and growth. Despite the energy in the room, doubt crawled back into Ethan's mind. The lingering question remained. Would they embrace this movement, or would they dismiss it as frivolous sentimentality? Jack shifted in his chair, clearly still weighing his options, causing the doubt to seep deeper into Ethan's resolve. I understand that this is a departure from our conventional strategies. I know this sounds risky, Ethan continued, the words flowing like a plea. But isn't risk the cost of progress? Isn't vulnerability the key to authentic brand loyalty? If we invest in our people, we can transform our company from within. Unexpectedly, he detected a flicker of recognition in Jack's gaze. For a moment, Ethan believed his message was beginning to penetrate the fortress of hesitation. He pressed forward, detailing how prioritizing employee stories could evoke emotional connections, driving not only internal change but external loyalty. As he wrapped up, a new layer of anxiety enveloped him. This was it. He was exposed, raw before them. He faced their judgment with bated breath, praying it wouldn't come crashing down. Just as the silence began to stretch uncomfortably, a voice broke through. The CFO, known for his cold pragmatism. What are the numbers behind this? Can you quantify the impact human narratives would have on our profits? Ethan felt as if the ground shifted beneath him. He understood the reality of business, but had waded into the emotional realm, where metrics didn't fit neatly into spreadsheets. The numbers, while important, felt less relevant than the emotional undercurrents he'd tapped into. I can't quantify this fully yet, Ethan admitted, swallowing hard. But I believe that true loyalty isn't measured in sales figures alone. It's built on trust. We have the chance to be pioneers in redefining how businesses connect with employees and customers alike. The CFO raised an eyebrow, assessing this unexpected vulnerability. So you believe our people are our most valuable asset? Absolutely, Ethan replied, locking eyes with Jack. If we can unlock their stories, we unlock their potential. Ethan felt the tide shifting once again. He risked everything, putting his authenticity on the line. As Jack leaned forward, the expression on his face hinted that a decision was brewing. But before Ethan could grasp the implications of that exchange, another voice interjected, more abrasive and unyielding. And if this doesn't work, Ethan? What's the fallout? The weight of those words hung heavy, piercing through Ethan's newfound hope. Tension hung in the air, electric and foreboding. Would the board rally behind his vision, or would fear quell the roar of progress? The moment felt monumental, and with it came a ruthless clarity. He was operating at the precipice of becoming or utterly failing. Ethan could feel the eyes of the room trained on him, each breath growing shallower as uncertainty loomed. The next words uttered could either fortify his position or unravel everything he had built. In that pivotal instant, he realized his journey towards understanding his values, his professional identity, and the very essence of leadership was only just beginning. Would he find a way to convince them? With the weight of their skepticism pressing down, Ethan braced himself for the delicate dance of persuasion that appeared inevitable. Would he uncover the strategy that could transform not just the board's perception, but also the very fabric of their corporate culture? Ethan's mind raced as he grappled with the CFO's question. What would the fallout be if this didn't pan out? He had thought only of the potential rewards, the chance to innovate, to create a company culture that valued authenticity. But what if he risked everything only to fail? The thought felt like ice in his veins. He had been so focused on the heart of his pitch, the stories of resilient employees, that he hadn't fully considered the repercussions of a miscalculated gamble. Yet, within that realization lay the seed of clarity. It wasn't only about the numbers. I can assure you, he began slowly, choosing his words with care, that the fallout would ultimately be a loss of trust, both internally and externally. If we fail to connect with our employees, they will disengage, and that can lead to higher turnover and lower morale. These are variables that have a direct impact on our bottom line. A dangerous flicker of hope flared in Ethan's chest as he watched Jack lean slightly forward. It was a subtle gesture, one that suggested he was weighing this argument differently, perhaps even starting to understand its implications. The stakes had shifted, now encompassing not just profit margins, but the very ethos of the company. Ethan pressed on, feeling a sense of burgeoning confidence. Imagine we become an example, a model for others to follow. What if we're not just a company selling a product, but a leader in how we view and treat our workforce? By embracing our employees' narratives, we invite loyalty and encourage collaboration. This passion can translate into performance, one that can ultimately be measured, just not in the way traditional metrics would suggest. The air felt charged as he spoke. Each word resonated, pushing past the walls of skepticism. Yet doubt lingered. The board members still appeared apprehensive. The pushback he experienced wasn't backing down, and Ethan knew he needed to demonstrate more than just faith in his vision. Jack's eyes narrowed as challenging thoughts formed behind his brow. It sounds noble, Ethan, but while you're painting this grand vision, I want concrete steps. How do we begin? Ethan nodded, ready to pivot. We can start with workshops that bring employees together to share their experiences. This will help create a network of support, reinforcing that their stories matter. We can document these experiences and integrate them not just into our marketing, but into our training and development programs. This will set the foundation for a more open and honest culture. He could sense the board processing this shift. He wasn't simply asking for buy-in. He was providing a roadmap. The path ahead was still unclear, but with every challenge he faced, Ethan felt a growing belief in his ability to lead. But with each moment of realization came harsh reflections on his own weaknesses. He was torn between sharing this newfound confidence and the nagging voice of self-doubt that had always shadowed him. Had he truly earned the right to lead a cultural revolution within the company? This internal conflict loomed, distracting from the gravity of the conversation unfolding in front of him. A whisper of awareness tinged with fear crept back into Ethan's mind. He needed to be more than just a messenger. He had to embody the change he advocated. Could he truly confront his fears, his insecurities about being an effective leader? The board's tension hung palpably as silence filled the air once more. Would they see the potential in his vision, or would they diminish it with their skepticism? Ethan faced Jack again, determined though uncertain. The time has come to pivot, to take a risk, and do something meaningful. We cannot worry solely about profits, but must invest in our workplace culture. That connection will fuel our productivity and creativity for years to come. As the words left his mouth, he felt another layer of uncertainty ebb away, replaced by the urge to align his values with the company's intent. He was standing on the edge of a profound change, not just for the workplace, but for himself. Yet, amid this burgeoning resolve, the voice at the back of his mind shouted louder now. What if they rejected him? What if they couldn't see that vulnerability could be a source of strength? Ethan stood at a crossroads. The moment was profoundly personal, and its outcome would shape his professional journey. His heart raced, knowing that the very foundation of what he built could shift in an instant, balancing not just his professional aspirations, but his self-worth as well. And then came the silence, the unsettling pause that felt like a hollow pit in his stomach. Ethan realized the board was about to respond, their verdict poised to either cripple his ambitions or invigorate them. The confrontation was upon him, and he braced to face the storm head-on. Would they embrace his vision, or would he have to contend with the haunting specter of failure? Ethan held his breath as Jack shifted in his seat, the silence stretching painfully. Finally, Jack's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Your idea is compelling, Ethan. But what makes you think that a few workshops are enough to change a culture that's been stagnant for years? The question was a blow, exposing Ethan's underlying fear that his vision, while well-intentioned, might be too simplistic. It's a starting point, he replied, clinging to the edge of his resolve. Culture shifts take time, but they require clear steps. We can establish metrics for how these workshops impact employee engagement, even if we can't measure the emotional connections immediately. Jack seemed unimpressed. His lips pursed as if he were contemplating the weight of Ethan's words. The other board members exchanged glances, a few nods of agreement, but mostly skepticism. They were waiting, Ethan realized, for him to justify the leap into this untrodden territory. Ethan's stomach turned, the nagging voice of self-doubt clawing at him. Had he overlooked the finer details? He couldn't let fear overshadow this critical moment. He had to maintain his stance, to embody the change he sought to inspire. To truly transform our workplace, we need to start listening, Ethan said, urgency guiding his tone. Employees will share aspects of their lives that we may have never considered. Those stories will shine a light on our blind spots as an organization. People are not just numbers, they are experiences, and these experiences fuel our creativity and innovation. The board remained cautious. He could sense their skepticism morphing into concern for the potential backlash if the project floundered. The stakes were rising, but rather than retreating into uncertainty, Ethan felt a flicker of determination. He had to push through, not only for the organization, but for his own sense of purpose. Perhaps we can pilot this in a smaller department, Doris, a board member, suggested. That way, we can assess the viability of your idea before rolling it out company-wide. Ethan seized this opening, grateful for any semblance of acknowledgement. Yes, an initial pilot would allow us to research our impact while demonstrating a commitment to our staff's journey. We can adjust based on their feedback and refine the approach until it aligns with both our corporate values and performance goals. A hesitant nod from Jack hinted that he was beginning to see the potential in this collaborative approach. Yet, just as quickly as the glimmer of optimism appeared, the shadows of his insecurities loomed larger. Was it enough? Was he truly capable of steering this ship through the rough waters ahead? As the discussion progressed, Ethan's thoughts drifted. He replayed his journey, thus far, moments of triumph stitched alongside missteps. This wasn't just a pitch. It was a call to arms for himself, a chance to lead with authenticity. The more he explored the idea, the more he felt the weight of what lay ahead. Ethan, Jack's voice focused him, bringing him back to the present. If we approve this pilot, I expect to see actionable insights and substantial progress within the first few months. Absolutely, Ethan affirmed, his confidence momentarily steadying him, but within, uncertainty bubbled. Teaming up with skeptical employees would require vulnerability, and vulnerability felt like a double-edged sword. Did he have the strength to face their biases and fears, all while exposing his own? The stakes felt insurmountable, and doubts lingered in the mere fact he was expected to lead change he was still uncovering in himself. The weight of the possibility of failure pressed heavily, and yet anticipation tinged the air. What if he found not just professional growth, but personal liberation through this journey? Could he discover facets of himself that he had buried deep under doubt? Ethan knew he needed to confront this inner conflict, not just for himself, but for the people he aimed to uplift. As the meeting concluded with a tentative agreement to move forward, Ethan stepped outside, the brisk air brushing against his skin. Was he prepared to walk the path he'd just charted? The battle wasn't confined to the boardroom. No, the true confrontation awaited him, the challenge to redefine not just the company culture, but to redefine what leadership meant for him personally. The question gnawed at him. How far was he willing to go to embrace the leader he aspired to become? And as he took a deep breath, a thought struck him. The real work was just beginning. Would he brave the winds of doubt, or allow them to sweep him off course? The answer lay just ahead, where clarity and chaos intertwined. Ethan walked away from the meeting with a split heart, feeling both elation from the green light to proceed and trepidation about the road ahead. He anticipated how exposing this project would feel, like revealing a raw nerve to the world. The time for reflective thought quickly passed as he transitioned into planning mode. He needed clarity, a roadmap that didn't just chart the course of the project, but also illuminated his own latent fears. Back in his office, Ethan spread out notes, brainstorming ideas about how to best approach the pilot. But his mind kept wandering to the hurdles the department he would have to work with. He thought of their weariness, their frustrations simmering beneath the surface. They would see him not just as their colleague, but as a representative of the management team, a division that often fell short of their expectations. He flipped through past projects that had derailed, premature corporate initiatives that had fizzled, and he questioned whether he could truly make a difference. He picked up the phone and called Julie, a close colleague known for her insights into team dynamics. "Hey, can we brainstorm about the pilot project?" he asked, attempting to steady his nerves. He had always respected her perspective, and he hoped her candidness could help stitch together this half-formed plan into something actionable. They met at a nearby cafe that served light fare in a creatively decorated space, bustling with energy. Within moments of their conversation starting, Julie dissected the project's parameters. "Ethan, it's commendable to focus on listening to employees, but you also have to prepare for resistance. Not everyone will embrace what you want to do. Their skepticism is rooted in years of feeling unheard." Her words hit him hard. Resistance wasn't just a possibility. It was an expectation he had to confront head-on. He needed strategies to dismantle it, but how? "What do you suggest?" he asked, feeling the tightening knot of anxiety returning. "Understand the culture you're working within," she said, her eyes steady as they met his. "Have one-on-one conversations before launching the workshops. Build personal connections. When they see you're genuinely invested, they may start to listen. It's about planting seeds of trust." Ethan absorbed this advice, wondering how he could shed the armor of authority he had unconsciously worn. He had to be approachable, human. As their conversation flowed, he felt the gears in his mind clicking into place. The idea of reaching out personally to each team member shifted from terrifying to exhilarating. He envisioned the depth of understanding he might gain from their stories, their lives. This connection became the antidote to his self-doubt. He could feed their trust while blossoming as a leader. However, as he left the cafe, a deep unease settled in the pit of his stomach. What if opening himself up exposed weaknesses? What if he unveiled truths that mattered too much? Vulnerability could backfire, revealing his own insecurities as he unearthed theirs. But in that moment, he understood that becoming the leader he aspired to be required risking discomfort. It was a choice between stagnation and growth. Days passed, and Ethan began methodically scheduling meetings with team members. Each interaction felt like peeling back layers of a complex onion. Relief and tension wove together in unexpected ways. Some employees appreciated the opportunity to share. Others regarded him with the cautiousness he had anticipated. Still, he listened intently, a student in a classroom of real-life experiences that lived on the borderline of frustration and hope. Then came that pivotal moment. He sat down with Gregory, a janitor who had worked at the company for over 2 decades. Greg's days began before dawn and ended long after most employees had left. The first few minutes were awkward, but then Greg spoke, his voice filled with passion. He shared the stories behind the constant hum of the office, the unspoken issues buried beneath crisp reports and formal meetings that IT rocked. Ethan to the core, illuminating an unseen side of the company culture. He realized that capturing these stories could provide a foundation for authentic change. Yet, there remained a haunting question. Would he have the courage to reflect these narratives to his peers without distorting their essence? As his next meeting approached, Ethan was left grappling not just with the project's intricacies, but also with his emerging leadership identity. How could he carry the weight of others' stories without losing himself? The time had come to delve deeper into this journey. What other hidden struggles would emerge, and how might they reshape him? The answers awaited him like unopened doors, each with its own challenges and revelations. Ethan Caldwell sat quietly at his desk, the late afternoon sun streaming through the polished glass windows of his office, illuminating the neatly organized papers before him. Today marked the culmination of months spent weaving his vision of change into the fabric of his company, a scholarship program for employees like Miguel that would transcend corporate rhetoric and emerge as a lifeline to those aspiring for more. He had successfully navigated the internal skepticism of the board, securing approval for a pilot project to provide educational opportunities. As he stared at the documents outlining the project's parameters, his heart swelled with a profound sense of accomplishment. Just a few weeks ago, he had been a man torn between corporate ambition and ethical responsibility. Now, standing at the precipice of a significant shift, he felt reborn. The fears that had once gnawed at him now seemed distant, replaced by a strong resolve to lead with purpose. He had taken the leap. He had confronted his doubts and emerged not just as a leader advocating for change, but as an individual aligned with his values. The once sharp weight of guilt was now a buoyant badge of honor. In the weeks leading up to this moment, Ethan had forged not just professional connections, but genuine relationships grounded in empathy and understanding. He spent hours engaging with his colleagues, capturing their stories and struggles, finding inspiration in the shared experiences that painted a vivid picture of the workforce. Gathering these narratives had not only shaped his proposal, but illuminated a hidden strength within him: vulnerability as a conduit to connection. As he prepared for the initial workshop set to begin in less than an hour, Ethan reflected on the man he had become. Gone were the days of prioritizing profit over purpose and treating employees as mere cogs in a financial machine. Now, he was channeling his success into coaxing growth, fostering a culture steeped in belonging. Suddenly, a knock broke his reverie. It was Miguel, who had become a symbol of resilience in the company. Over the past weeks, their interactions had deepened, and Miguel was now ready to step into the spotlight. "Ethan," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with anticipation, "I wanted to thank you for believing in this initiative. It means more than just a scholarship to me. It's hope." The sincerity in Miguel's eyes struck a chord within Ethan. In this moment, he understood profoundly that he was not simply changing the corporate landscape. He was instigating a wave of hope that would have lasting effects on the lives of many. "Thank you, Miguel," he replied, pride swelling within him. "You are the embodiment of what this program represents." As the workshop began, Ethan walked confidently through the door, propelled by purpose rather than fear. The room filled with curious faces, employees unsure of what to expect. He took a deep breath, glancing at the familiar faces of the janitorial staff, HR members, and fellow executives, everyone together for a shared purpose. This was not just a program. It was a movement towards inclusivity and compassion within the workplace. Today, we'll be focusing on our stories. We'll share experiences, challenges, and aspirations. This program isn't just about scholarships. It's about our collective journey toward growth, he proclaimed, feeling the energy in the room shift as hesitance gave way to optimism. As stories were shared, the emotional weight filled the space. Laughter intermingled with tears, vulnerability blossomed into camaraderie. In those moments, Ethan witnessed the power of authenticity, transforming apprehension into connection. Each narrative woven into the shared tapestry deepened the trust and solidarity among the employees. The workshop culminated with a sense of renewed purpose. It was not merely a gathering, but a pivotal moment of breakthrough. He had proven to himself that leadership was beyond titles and financial forecasts. It was about elevating others. He had forged a new path for his organization while unearthing a sense of belonging that would ripple through its culture. Later that afternoon, Ethan received a call from Jack. "Ethan, I just wanted to acknowledge the incredible feedback coming from the workshop. I didn't expect this response. People feel seen, valued." As Jack's voice vibrated through the line, Ethan felt a swell of pride. "I'm thrilled to hear that. It confirms what we're building. A new tradition. This is just the beginning." With each passing day, Ethan continued to grow not just as a leader, but as a person defined by empathy and integrity. He had faced his fears and had chosen vulnerability, ultimately earning the respect of his peers and those he served. He learned that confronting discomfort could yield beautiful change not just for those he aimed to help, but for himself. As he gazed out at the Manhattan skyline, Ethan knew he had embarked on a journey that would not just redefine his company, but also his own identity. The thriving humanity behind the walls of his office sang a new song of hope, and for the first time, he felt truly free. This was his legacy, and with it came a profound satisfaction that could not be quantified. He had transcended mere success to achieve something infinitely more lasting. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.